Okay, we'll talk very briefly about the previous matchups because most of them were beatdowns, but one in particular had some pretty huge implications in the league. Tim barely upsetting Sam vaulted Tim past Jason into the playoff hunt, rather deeper into the playoff hunt, and might have secured Chris the number one seed. Had Sam won, he'd only be like a point and a half behind Chris, and Tim would be mucking around with Jason, Patrick, and me. But now Tim has a full point to separate himself in the rankings. The final month of the regular season is going to be, of our regular season rather, is going to be fucking crazy, particularly with some of the schedules that are happening. I've been looking through the league and there are a lot of playoff hopefuls playing each other and a lot of like Sacco potentials playing each other as well. The rankings are likely going to change a lot over the next few weeks. I love when teams play each other like that, like two playoff teams, because you can really like put some distance between yourself or close the gap trying to like get into the playoffs and stuff. It sucks having to like win your game and you're doing great and then you just watch the other team just like win their game too, and so you can't close the gap. So I like when there's a lot of playing at each other. So we'll see a lot of that over the next couple of weeks. Now let's get to the power rankings. You all are balancing on a bucket right now. I'm sure you could tell. All this shit, that's a bucket. You don't even know. You're on a bucket right now, you fucking idiot. You bucking idiot. Anyway, number 10 is Scott, down one from last place. I don't have much, or down from last week. I don't have a lot to say after Scott's past week. No Jane Daniels, no Terry McLaurin, no Ramondre. AJ Brown is literally telling people to drop him in fantasy. Plus Kamara, Tyler Warren, the Colts defense, they're all on bye. Things just like almost can't get worse for Scott right now. It's really rough. And Jaden Daniels isn't even put on IR, but he's definitely out for the next 3 weeks. So like Scott can't even use his IR spot to pick up someone else with all these buys. It's a shit show down there, man. Send thoughts and prayers to Scott. We all know those work. At number 9 is Grant, down one spot from last week. Again, like Grant is not like terrible, but seeing Calvin Ridley and the Cowboys defense in the same lineup made me throw up in my mouth a little bit. I'll note that injuries and buys are hitting kind of hard, and that if Grant had like Jackson Dart, Chris Olave, J.K. Dobbins, I'd feel somewhat different about this team. But no week matters more than the one that we're in right now, and right now this team just doesn't look awesome. Plus, Grant mentioned that he's willing to sell Bijan after this week. Like, brother, why? You're going to need him in the Sacco that you're likely going to be in. At number 8, up 2 spots from last week, is me. Mahomes and Jamar Chase are coming off a bye. All my pass catchers have insane matchups, and my special team slots are poised for greatness. But my running backs have really tough matchups. Plus, Mahomes playing the fucking Broncos could like result in him scoring like 14 points or something. My team has been like the worst version of Jason's in that I've had 5 weeks scoring in the top 4, but then also 4 weeks scoring in the bottom 2. That's like my worst performance that I've ever had, is having that many bottom scoring weeks. It's really rough out here. I'm either like 1 for 4 for the week or 9 of 10, like scoring 1st through 4th or 9 or 10th. 5 through 8, never heard of her. Mediocrity, I guess, is just not my thing, he says, as he's literally 5 and 5. At number 7, down 1 spot from last week, is Dan. It is almost unbelievable that this team, the number 2 scoring team in the league over the past 5 weeks, is 1 and 4 over that same span. Dan has scored between 109 and 122 for 5 straight weeks and has lost 4 of them. For the record, the average score on a weekly basis in the league is 110, and that is buoyed a lot by Chris. It's actually like 107 or 108. So basically for 5 straight weeks, Dan has been above average in scoring and has only won a single game. That is a brutal run out. Now, do I think that Dan should be a playoff team? Yeah, maybe, maybe not. But do I think he could at least be in that conversation? Probably, without the horrible luck. This team looked like absolute donkey dick for the first 5 weeks of the season, and that has stuck in our heads. But again, that's only like 1/3 of our regular season. Dan is no longer like an easy matchup, though he is definitely an easy lay. Wink. Anyway, number 6, up 1 spot from last week, is Kevin, and now this may just be for 1 week, but this week, Kevin's team looks fucking scary. I was glancing at my schedule a few weeks back and saying, oh good, well at least I'll get a win in week 11 against Kevin. Slow your fucking roll Commish. Achan, Judkins, and Henderson are all like a big play waiting to happen. And Caleb Williams is capable of hanging 30 in any given week. He's also capable of scoring literally 5 points in a given week, but still, he can do it. This could go belly up for Kevin as early as next week, but for right now, this team is not fucking around. At number 5, the same spot as last week, is Tim. Another week, another recap where I'm wondering if Bucky Irving is literally ever going to play football again. Tim's bench is a graveyard for good young players who showed lots of promise before they got hurt. Tim snuck a cheeky little win over Sam last week on the back of 2 completely garbage time touchdowns to Debo and Marvin Harrison Jr. Both teams were down by like 17 at least. Now this week, Tim has some really good matchups in what could be some just like fun football games like Bills, Bucks, Falcons, Panthers, Eagles, Lions, but there are definitely still some question marks due to injuries and bye weeks. We'll see what next week looks like and if Bucky Irving can get back. At number 4, the same spot as last week, is Patrick. Now, Jackson Smith-Njigba is scoring so much he would be running back 8 in points per game, right behind Bijan frickin' Robinson. What he's doing this year is nothing short of insane. And it's not like his fantasy points are like buoyed by a couple of massive yardage gains or just like a bunch of touchdowns. He has at least 90 yards in every single game this year, plus only 5 touchdowns. Watching him is like watching Backdoor Sluts 9 for the first time, where you're like, yeah, this is what greatness looks like. Also, Josh Jacobs has been like the picture of consistency as well, scoring at least 1 touchdown in every single game this year, except in week 3 against the Browns, which that's forgivable. The rest of Patrick's team has been, let's say, up and down, but having that high floor combo of Jacobs and JSN, plus a really deep bench, keeps Patrick securely in the playoff conversation. At number 3, down 2 spots from last week, is Chris. This is obviously temporary, but without JT, this team looks, dare I say, mortal. Plus, no Alec Pierce, who has seemingly surged into relevance over the past month, earning almost 9 targets a game. Plus, a couple guys are questionable, so this could be the beginning of the end for Chris. Or maybe it's just a tiny little speed bump on his way to his 3rd championship, because obviously I'm very much picking nits here. Chris, we'll see you back at the top probably next week. At number 2, up 1 spot from last week, is Jason. And other than Daniel Jones, all of Jason's players are now like past their bye weeks, and now could be the time that Jason could go on a run. He's got 3 stud running backs, really good wide receivers, a target hog tight end, and he might get Joe freaking Burrow back in a couple of weeks. The problem is the schedule. Jason has to face Dan, Tim, and Sam 3 of his next 4 weeks, which are 3 high-scoring teams, especially as of the past few weeks. If he can beat Tim and get another 2 wins over his next 3, I think Jason has a very strong shot at the playoffs and is definitely not a team that anyone should want to face if he gets there. And at number 1, that leaves us with Sam, up 1 spot from last week. I think this roster is probably more complete than Chris's, but Chris leads in scoring just because he has a few guys that can go completely nuts on any given day and have done so plenty of times. In fact, had Jonathan Taylor scored his normal scoring last week, Chris would have scored like 113 points. That's a fine week. It's nothing crazy. Every week, though, it seems like 1 or 2 of Chris's guys just go fucking nuclear. Now, I will say, Sam has a couple of those guys as well. We just haven't seen it quite as often. It's usually solid scoring from everyone rather than like a 40-point running back here and there. The thing I like most about Sam's team is that it really just doesn't have a single weakness. Even if Justin Herbert can't quite perform, every other guy on that roster can just like dominate his game and put up legit fantasy points. Sam could go 1-3 over the next 4 weeks and definitely still make the playoffs. However, we'll probably still hear him freaking out about a dropped pass from a no-name wide receiver at the end of a game where he's already up 40 on Monday Night Football. Anyway, let's talk about the upcoming matchups. We have Patrick favored by 7.5 over Chris. That is Chris putting Patrick as the favorite, I will note. However, I think I probably agree. Chris is missing players, but Patrick has like volatile guys starting for him. I'm terrified to pick this game, and I don't know that I will. Jason is favored by 3.5 against Dan. Now, this could easily be the top scoring matchup of the week. Both teams look deeper than my butthole, and there are lots of good matchups on both sides. I think the over is 240 plus for sure. Sam is favored by 20 against Grant. I think Chris absolutely nailed this line. I just don't see any world where Grant even comes close here. I'm favored by 5.5 against Kevin. Now, this was interesting to me based on, I guess, ESPN's projections. Of course, like we all know they don't mean anything, but Kevin's lineup looks legitimately scary this week. He's got a lot of talented players. They've got good matchups, and I think there's lots of touchdowns that are going to be scored on his side. I desperately need a win to stay relevant, but I'm hesitant to pick myself because I'm really not sure that I'm going to win this matchup. And if I don't, I'm in some deep shit. Lastly, we have Tim favored by 22.5 versus Scott. I believe that's our biggest line ever, so congrats there, guys. Frankly, this line is more massive than Tim's quads or Scott's penis, since those are basically the same size. We got blue balled a little bit with Bucky Irving returning to limited practice, but it seems, Tim, that you'll be without him for another week. Even so, I think Tim probably covers the 22.5 spread here. Lastly, remember that the trade deadline is prior to the Week 12 kickoff. That is Thursday of next week. And that'll do it for this week's recap. Good luck to everyone except Kevin, and go fuck yourselves.